Old cabin in the woods. Kathy, who had just turned 14, and her family went on a trip to their grandparents' farm outside Montgomery, Alabama. The trip was long and tedious from Atlanta, especially because of the hot weather. Upon their arrival, the parents were busy arranging the country house, so Kathy and her sister Nan went out to wander in the woods and collect wildflowers. There they stopped in front of a small hut covered with plants and weeds. The hut was old and dilapidated, and its windows were broken. Everything in it is already dead. After a wave of recklessness swept Kathy's mind, she ran quickly to the hut and stopped in front of the door, which was almost open. She said, "Is there anyone inside?" But no one answered her, so she laughed because she was sure that the place was deserted. Kathy wandered with her sister in the place. In the main room, there was dust covering everything, as well as cobwebs. There was a rickety sofa and its cushions were cut. As for the next room, it contained a kitchen with a small dining table with dishes on it, and the seat was placed in the middle of the road away from the table, as if someone was sitting on it and got up. Leaving the place in a hurry, the two girls felt that someone was watching them, so they left the place quickly, and before they left the place, curiosity returned to overcome fear, which prompted them to go back and go up to the second floor. An old but still beautiful copper bed with an old quilt that looks like it has hosted many different wild animals. Kathy backed away and closed the door and crossed the hall and went to another room, opened the door and then stood in shock. Nan stood on tiptoe so that she could see over her sister's shoulder, and she saw in front of her a clean room with old and worn-out furniture, but it was elegant, with no trace of dust in the place. "There is a child sitting on it." Then its speed gradually decreased until it stopped completely. In the room there was also a baby bed with a rocking chair next to it. On the other side of the room there was an old wooden box. Kathy quickly went over to him, and Nan behind her knelt beside him. Then she lifted the lid, and among the old things inside, Kathy found old letters that almost revealed to her the identity of the owners of the cottage. Kathy read the first letter and it turned out to be from the husband who was a soldier fighting in Virginia. "I miss you so much," he wrote to his wife, "and also our little son. What scares me is that I may not be able to come home to be with you." She put the letter back in its place. Then Kathy picked up another letter and started reading aloud, but she suddenly stopped and tears began to flow from her eyes. Nan took the letter and read it. This time it was from the wife to her husband. To save him, Nan put the letter back in the box, then took out a small piece of paper. It was a telegram from the army. It said, "Madam, we regret to inform you that your husband has died in action." For a few minutes silence prevailed before a humming sound was heard in the room, accompanied by a soft voice repeating a lullaby. Nan quickly returned the telegram to the box and closed it, and Kathy and Nan quickly exited the room. While she was running outside, Nan felt something touch her arm. She turned around to find the rocking chair slowly moving back and forth, and the sound of singing became louder, but this did not stop them, but they continued running until they went out of the house, and when they felt safe in the forest and close to the house, Kathy did not mind looking back, and Nan also did, but this time the house was not deserted, but there was a blond boy looking at them from a window on the second floor. Out of fear the two girls ran quickly. They walked through the forest without realizing the scratches they had suffered as a result of contact with the wild plants with thorns. After returning home, they told their father the story, but he said something that terrified him more. He said, "There was a house in the forest, many years ago." Everyone knows its story, and it is exactly what they knew from the letters, but for the rest of the story, after the wife learned of her husband's death, she left the place because he reminded her of her child and her husband, but after a while it became clear that the husband was still alive, and when he returned, he did not find his wife. He burned the house out of grief, and currently there is no trace of the house left. They went to where Kathy and her sister had found the cabin, but found nothing but the wreckage of a burned house. Horror story.